John Culver was a Harvard classmate of Senator Kennedy's, football teammate, worked in his Senate office, went back home to Iowa, served in the Congress of the United States, and then the Senate of the United States.
Thank you.
A great friend for a long time, John Culver.
Thank you very much, Paul. To Vicki, who, as Orrin Hatch said, really was the love of Ted's life. To his sister, Jean Smith, who always told me that she was Ted's favorite sister. And to all the children, Ted's children, Vicki's children, and all the extended Kennedy family. In a real sense, everyone here in the room, who I think feels very strongly part of that extraordinary family. It was in the winter, I believe, of 1975, and Ted called me and said, I'd like you to come up to Boston with me, and they've suggested several sites for the John F. Kennedy Museum and Library, and I'd like you to come along. So I did, and I remember it was a winter day, rather cold and overcast, and there was snow on the ground. And when we came to this particular place and looked across Dorchester Bay, saw Boston, saw the water, Ted turned to me and he said, you know, I think Jack would like this place. And of course, it wasn't many years later that this library was built, and I think we all agree Jack would really like this place. But also I was reminded again as I came here to the library of that little sailboat out front, the Ventura, which Joe Kennedy talked about. And I have a fond memory, I guess it's a fond memory, of the Ventura myself. And it was when Ted and I one time were in summer school in 1953 at Harvard. And Ted said to me one day, you know, why don't you come with me this weekend? I'm going down to the Cape. It's a lot of fun. There's going to be a sailboat race. It's called the Nantucket Regatta. It's a lot of fun. And I want you to come down and be part of my crew on the sailboat race. And I said, Ted, I'm sure that's an honor to be invited to be on your crew in a sailboat race, but I've never been on a sailboat. I think I've seen a picture of a sailboat. I said, I come from Iowa, and the only boat I ever saw were barges on the Mississippi River. Well, he said, there's nothing to it. There's nothing to it. How many times have we all heard Ted say, there's nothing to it? At that time, we were both young. I didn't quite understand that comment, as I grew to understand later. I said, okay. So we got in the car, and Ted and I were driving down to the Cape, and he turned on the car radio, and we were enjoying the trip, listening to some music. And this was on Friday afternoon. And suddenly the radio broadcast was interrupted with a bulletin. And the bulletin said, serious storm warnings. And it said, danger at sea. Don't anyone go out in the ocean. And I said, well, Ted, I guess the sailboat's off, trip's off. Oh, there's nothing to it. And I said, well, the fellow on the radio thought there was something. He said, there's nothing to it. So I said, he must know what he's doing. You know, he lives down there. And I've never been on the ocean. So when we got down when we got down to the house, when we got down to the Kennedy house, it was about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And there were dark, black storm clouds gathering. But I said, Ted, it looks kind of scary. He said, nothing to it. So I said, well, I'm hungry. He said, I'm hungry too. And so it was about 3 and we'd missed lunch. And we went in and we went right to the kitchen, where I often went with him. We were down there right to the kitchen. And the cook was still there. And he said, I'm just finishing up here, but I have some leftover salmon salads, mixed salmon salad. And I could make you boys some sandwiches if you'd like. And I thought, well, we both thought that was a good idea. And so we didn't have a lot of time, he said, so I only had 2 salmon salad sandwiches. I had a quart of milk with it. And I would have had more, but we didn't have time, really. So Ted says, come on, we got to get going now. And now it's about 4 o'clock. And so we get out, and in those days, they didn't have all the fancy docks and everything, even around the family compound. It was just kind of a beach, as I remember. And he said, we got to get in the boat. I said, okay. And I looked out in the horizon looking for this boat. And I said, where's the boat? He said, there's the boat. Well, if any of you have seen the Maya out front, that was the boat. The Maya is exactly 20, not the Maya, Victura. The Victura, you've seen that little boat out front. That's the boat I'm talking about. That's the boat he pointed out that said we were going on a sailboat race with. And it's 26 feet long. And Ted and I both weighed at the time over 200 pounds. We were both over 6 feet tall. And I said, he said, that's it, that's the boat, let's get it out in the water. So I did what I could to help get out in the water, but the water at that time, there were huge waves now. There was thunder, there was lightning, the sky was black. And I could hardly get in the boat. It was bouncing so much, and he's at the tiller or something. And suddenly I realized this friend of mine that I thought I knew quite well started screaming at me, shouting at me. I was terrified. After a while, I was more terrified of him than the storm. And I didn't know this man. And so he kept screaming at me the spinnaker, the jib, port side, secure that, whatever. And Ted's not always easy to understand when you know what he's talking about. And here with the incredible roar now of the ocean and the waves and this little tiny, it's like a cork on we're being bounced all over, and it's my fault. And so I'm just hanging on for dear life, and we only got about 200 miracle yards out, and I lost the sandwiches. And I thought I was going to die. And I've never been so miserable. I'm hanging over the side of the boat, and he's screaming at me. I mean, do you think he said, hey, I'm sorry, do you feel bad? Forget it.